Hey everyone, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. So in today's episode we're going to go ahead and work on the stern end of the USS Enterprise CV-6 by Trumpeter. But before we do that, there's a couple things I just wanted to kind of gloss over real quick here. When I was working on the hull in some of the first episodes, I was really under a time constraint to try and get a video out, and so I didn't get to wrap up everything that I normally would have done prior to putting that video out. So before I got going on the back end of the ship, I decided to tidy some things up. So went ahead and got the anchors installed up on the bow, and then I created a couple of plates and painted them black and glued them into the opening so that the anchors fit the way they're supposed to and that you couldn't see inside of the hull. It's all blacked out. Then for the portholes along the ship that I had to drill through the hull when I was doing my plate work, I went ahead and took some pieces of styrene and I spray painted them black. Once they were done drying, I went ahead and cut them into strips with some scissors and then just glued them onto the inside of the hull facing out. And so now when you look through the portholes from the outside, there's a black background in there like should be. Down the road, I'll go ahead and I'll get some just clear window glue. I've got some stuff buried here that I use. Even like the canopy glue will work. But we'll fill those in and we'll make them glass. And then the last thing I did is I went ahead and drilled a couple of holes in the bottom of the hull. Went and used 5-minute epoxy with a washer and a nut and glued those into the hull so that I could go ahead down the road and run a bolt up in through my stand to hold the ship in position. I also went ahead and drilled a hole up closer to the bow and ran a couple of wires up through. I'd like to light the inside of the hangar deck. I've got some LEDs for that. So all of that kind of needed to be done before we could work on the rest of the ship. So that being said, now we'll go ahead and we'll jump into the whole point of the episode, which is a ton of photo etch work that goes on the back end of the hull in the stern area. And it's really cool. I really do enjoy it. Special thank you and shout out to all my patrons. I really do appreciate you and your patience. I've got a couple more planks to put on the Duchess of Kingston hull, and then we'll move on with the next section of the final hull planking on that. I hope to get that video out not too distant future here. Thank you for everyone who likes and subscribes to this channel. I really do appreciate it. Feel free to give me a thumbs up and click that bell icon. I had a guy the other day watch one of my shorts and didn't realize he was already subscribed to my channel. So anyway, that'll give you some notifications if you feel like doing that. No big deal. That's it. Let's go ahead and get into the build. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the back of the ship. Time to get into the meat and potatoes of things. So, first of all, we've got our rear deck. This is all dry fitted, just sitting down. Everything you see with the little black mark on it has to be removed because we're going to put a piece of photo etch down, decking. This is the piece. It's going to slap down. It's going to be the base for this whole thing, right? And as you can see, it's flat, so all that's got to go, which is fine. The next thing we're going to deal with, though, is all of these pieces. So I've done some initial dry fitting, right? So this is the deck. This piece, it goes to about midship right there. And then we've got these nice little side pieces that get installed, and then there's these really big holes right here, and then of course this bulkhead. The big holes are for these anti-aircraft gun positions. The funny thing is they're poorly designed. Like, can you see how there's like it sets here, there's no support in the back, there's a tiny lip here and here, right? So that it'll go in and it'll sit, I guess, like that, right? So that means it's really important that this wall ends up in the right position so that it's flush right here, and so that this wall comes out all the way, right? So that means that this bulkhead right here must play a pivotal role in this whole thing. And then if we go around to the other side on starboard, it's just as bad. It sits on top and it just, you know, it's just out here free floating. And I think something has to go here too that I don't have yet installed and made up Yeah, there's a big hole on this side also. So actually, maybe when that piece goes in, it will help hold this up, because they need something, right? But that's later on down the road. The bones of the ship is this bulkhead and these bulkheads. So the next big critical photo etch piece is this guy. Now this is actually one piece folded in half. The seam is right here at the bottom of these tabs. I already folded in half and glued it together because it doesn't make a difference. And it drops down inside of here. Now Kenneth had problems. I think Jeff, I think that was his name, he had problems. A whole bunch of people have had problems back here. So the first thing I did was I said, we need to take a look at this piece. So on the back, all kinds of little detail, but most importantly, there's these two little tabs right here. There and there, right? And what this does is the bulkhead, those two bulkheads that we saw that were loose, they sit inboard of it. So that little piece of plastic's really important. What about this shape, right? Because we have issues with things going on in the corners and everything. Well, it turns out if you lay this on here, it matches exactly. It's the exact same shape, right? So when we have fit issues, if I drop this down in here, what's going on? Well, several things, right? First of all, there's this wiggle business, right? So obviously it's got to come all the way aft, right? And while it fits pretty good here in this blind corner, see here this lip, how it's up? It's very important that this gets pushed all the way down. And for that to get pushed all the way down, this deck has to be pushed all the way down for it to be level and have any chance of sitting exactly where it's supposed to. It's still just a little bit proud. Over here, it's really bad. You definitely have to get the deck pushed all the way down, and then this piece has to come all the way down and then forward here a little bit. There's a bit of a gap, and then it will too, in fact, sit flush on this corner, eliminating your fit problems. And that's fantastic for everything back here. But what about this area? All right, so when we go to the back of the ship, we have a gap. No bueno. Not only do we have a gap, where does this go? Exactly. Not good. So, now on a positive note, we have some detail here. There's little doors and things like that. So, we need to figure this out. This is going to be important, right? So, the immediate obvious thing here is got to clean this stuff off, got to cut all that stuff off, no problem. This deck has to sit down all the way. It has to be flush. It must be flush. If it's not flush, none of this is going to work. And I suspect fit issues that people had or have immediately stem from getting this thing down flush right away. The next problem you'll have is even these bulkheads right here, there's two tabs, one here and one here, that hold it in. They're kind of crummy. The fit isn't that great on the tab. The deck, or the bulkhead itself sits flush. You're going to have to clean it up a little bit. It'll go where it's supposed to, but you got to clean the tabs up so it goes down all the way so we don't sit proud. If I take this out, same piece, or the kit piece, same deal, it fits really tight and it actually sits up high on this side. I need to trim it significantly to get it to drop down into position here. There we go. So that this sits flush on this corner, and it will sit flush on this corner. You can get all the kit parts to sit perfectly flush where they need to go. That begs the question, if I place this right here, couldn't I just slap this thing on the front? You know, maybe cut out the little holes here for the doors and everything, and then we've got the kit gate spacing here, and everything kind of fills in and goes where it's supposed to. That's a question I have. because there's some thickness here to this bulkhead, our photo etch. It's robust, and I don't want to kick the deck out, this piece. And it actually, interesting enough, has a cutout. So the intention there by Pontos is for it to be like this, right? So that this deck actually goes underneath it a little bit, which would in fact raise it up ever so slightly, and that may be a problem as well, since these are already identical pieces. Double check here. This is all worthwhile conversation. Yeah, they're flush, okay? So if it's flush, even though we're talking a tiny, tiny bit, I think having the piece raise up at all, even though we get a real nice fit there, that might be a problem. Because it makes it proud. It runs proud now. I feel it, right? So what are we going to do? Well, I got to think on this a few minutes, honestly, but one of my first thoughts was I'd really like to utilize this kit bulkhead, and even though there's like photo etch here, because you come out onto a stairs, a set of steps is the idea here. Something like this, I think, or something like this. Something happens here. Maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, it'd be the other way around, like that, right? And there's a little stair that comes down, photo etch, and you step down onto this deck. And that's nice. We'd like to leave this like this, but I also need the thickness of this bulkhead back there to make this work. So I'm thinking some sort of modification to this plastic piece is going to happen so that we can utilize the photo etch the way that we want. And I may end up having to just trim off this edge, this leading edge here, so that this sits flush. That way we're not raising anything up. So for sure, I'm going to go ahead and just remove these pieces right away, and then I'm going to take some time to look at this deck and ensure that I get it fitting nice and flush, and then I'll come back and revisit this. All right, press it on. Okay, it's the next day, and I've been doing a bunch of thinking. So we are going to use this bulkhead. This is the side that you would see. This is the side that you don't, but has all the structural support in place. So I've got some lines sketched on here. Basically what I did was I took this ruler and I laid it up against my little tab right here, because my bulkhead sits on this side of it and runs up. I actually need to add a little bit more back, but I want there to be support here for the bulkhead. Then I went off of these tabs straight across and I drew a line. Basically, I'm going to remove this material right here, right? So if you take the appropriate, let's see here, is this one? Yeah. Piece, and we set it on here, you get a line like that, right down here. Because I want to get rid of this piece, but I need the thickness of the part to maintain the continuity of this floor, because this essentially is going to connect like this, like so. But we've got all this real estate back there, and this was all meant to fit together this way, with these big thick pieces. So really all I need to do is eliminate this spot right here. Then as far as thickness goes, well, I had a couple of thoughts. One, all I need to do is chop off this tab on the bottom here, and I can just glue this on the surface and it'll be fine. I got rid of the door there. There's a door that goes on top of this. It's going to be closed. We don't have to worry about these openings because we're about to remove all of this plastic. If the entire thing is thicker towards the back of the ship by 1 mil, it's okay. We're not going to have any problems. If this bulkhead moves forward, yeah, we're going to have problems. So, yeah, that's the solution. That's how I marked my lines, and I'm going to go ahead and cut them out. Then we'll glue this piece on, and we'll probably go ahead and prep for installing it. Yeah, it's a tough thing because we have all this material up on here, right? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'd like to. It's funny, like you need to put these deck pieces on to mark where it goes. I'd like to install this piece, this chunk of decking, just the 1/2, because everything will fit right if I do that. I'm concerned that I'll lose the edge here. I got to see how this drops on. You know, I'd like to do it loose and separate, but then there's all this paint work and prepping and things that have to go on. I'm just not sure my order of operation yet. You know, it's going to be super important that this piece goes in straight up and down vertical and sits in the right spot. So anyway, let's go ahead and do our surgery here, and we'll cut this piece out and yeah, get back to you. Okay, here we back are, right? Here we back are, is that proper? Here we are. So anyway, here's, you can see my cutout. This side's a lot easier to, because this thing's like kind of staying in position, but anyway, you get what I'm getting at here, right? It's important that this is flush, real close, because that chunk of the floor will probably be visible, and then, you know, this bulkhead's gonna go across it like that, and we just got glued in the front. So I'm really pleased with the fit. Over here, it's the same story. It's just that it's super critical that you push the deck all the way down to get this flush. Otherwise, it won't be flush, and then you end up, you know, with your piece fitting on there nicely like that. You can see my wall right here will still be supported. That makes me happy. So that means we can go ahead and cut all this junk off. Slap this on, and for this piece I'm going to go ahead and cut these tabs off. This thing's glued together, and I'm just going to glue it to the face of this, and then I'm probably going to have to lose this edge. If I stick underneath there, that's going to raise this bulkhead up, you know, 1/2 mil, but 1/2 mil seems to be a problem these days, so we're going to try and be precise. All right, so yeah, I'll get back to you with this all cleaned up in the next step. Pressing on. Okay, so back in action. We've got this bulkhead glued into place, and obviously the deck's glued down. What ended up happening is I trimmed that back edge of this deck like I was talking about, just bumped it up flush, glued into place. With some E6000 CA glue, no troubles. Just to speed things along, we've thrown on this door, 1, 2, 3 boxes, this little metal, this railing. This actually went in really well. I annealed it so it was kind of soft, and then there's a groove, and it really just kind of locks into place. So I had to just put a few dots of CA glue and it came in. And then the bits, same as covered before, on the bow. So that's it. It looks really nice. So now I'm here to complain about something and hopefully help you guys out. So these pieces right here, here, and here, there's those 3 holes. Those are gone. Turns out I was not supposed to cut them off because I cannot find any replacement pieces for them, and in this follow-up photograph on the instructions, they're clearly in place. Let me show you. There you go. There's one right there, and then you can kind of see the other one in the corner right there. And then again in this picture with the hatch, 1, 2, 3. So why did I cut them off? Because right here in the instructions it shows you cutting them off. So they're gone forever. Now, they don't look very complicated, right? It's just a little round piece with a little dealie sticking out on the back there. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I feel like replace them because so much stuff's going to go on here. I guess I could, if I have if I have the styrene rod to just cut and glue it together and sand it and put a thing down, I guess I will. I'll see if I'm in the mood for that. All right, next order of business, we're going to make this big giant thing with all these little parts, right? And then it ends up being this big box that drops on down there. And it's got a bunch of photo etch, so I'll grab the big piece here, fold it up to get us this shape just so we could get going. And then I'm going to go ahead and put all these pieces together. The instructions are all right here. There's nothing particularly complicated, so I'm not planning on showing all the assembly of these little subsections unless I run into something that really gives me a hard time. Then we'll come back and we'll see if I can't throw it all on there so we can get this happening, right? I'll just set it in place before we paint everything up. I'll have to figure out this. There's clearly a ledge right there. I'll have to figure out how that's going to work. All right, pressing on. All right, this is piece G3. It's the big square room that goes up on top of the deck on the fantail. It's kind of fun and interesting in that there's some stuff going on back here, but unfortunately this all ends up in the back and we'll probably never see it once the model is complete. This is the face exposed to the back, so we're just going to have to kind of enjoy the part now, I guess, is the way to put it. So a couple of bends right there, but we'll just start out with the usual stuff. Wow, I'm actually bottomed out there. I hit the, there we go. Hit my little supports to hold the whole thing together. Never really had that happen before. That bent up like that. There we go. See if we can do this side. It's going to be close here. Let's see. I know what we do. Slide our... Got these little adjustment holes like this. We'll have less leverage, but it's still going to work. And we'll come up like this. There's the old roof. That part in place. Okay, so you can see here, this is going to have to bend in at a 90 and then back out. I'll probably do that by hand. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to use this big edge. Let's see. This work? This work? All right, this is the best one. Roll that up like so. See how that worked out nicely right there? Get tightened up in a minute. I'm probably going to put a dot of solder in these corners to lock this all in, but for now this is gonna work just fine. Well, I can only go to there, get this one up. Okay, so we're basically set. We've just got this spot, so let me grab my hand benders. Use this needle nose here. Start on the outside one, and then we'll go to the inside. All right, and that's it. That's our piece. Actually, I think it looks pretty cool. Kind of clanky sounding, a bunch of stuff's got to get attached. So you can put a little dot of CA glue. I'm going to fire up the soldering iron and put a little dot of solder probably right in those corners there to hold this together. And then, yeah, we'll press on with the rest of the assembly. All right, we'll get back to you. Quickly here, as we press on, these doors are labeled Y4. That is incorrect. If we come to the Y sheet, Y4 is all of these funny looking things. Yeah. So Y1 is the door that matches what's in the instruction. They look like this. I'm going to go ahead and install them. That's what I got pressing on. Okay, here we are. Going to try and show you this without knocking anything down. Basically have almost all of the brass in place for the back of the hull and the stern area here. So while I pivot around and we look at this, I'm going to answer a couple of questions that I recently got. That was, one, how do you put this all together like this and then paint it? The answer is, I don't. It's dry fitted. If you look closely, you'll see that a lot of things are loose. Those reels in the back and on the bottom are just sitting there. Check out this big gap I've got right there on that supporting section. It's not even seated right. In fact, if you blow on it, both of these will just fall right down, right? I did screw up by probably not painting inside of here first. You'll probably see through that, but you know, it's okay. It might reflect a little bit of light. There's a big deck that's going to go over this. It's going to be really dark. But I wanted to get this shot, and people are like, why do you do this? That's it right there. I want to get this shot for you guys so you can see all of this brass. Also right there, that little opening on the side, I got the little photo etch put in there as well. We peek down underneath. Really well thought out. The only thing that's missing, see straight ahead, right in the middle. Right in the very middle there, there's like a column going straight up and down in the middle of the bits. Right in front of that should be this guy. And what I ran into was when you slide this piece in, because on the back, see a little tab right there going in the wall behind the reel, and there's one there also behind that reel. That post that you see going up and down right there in the middle is in fact connected to the floor, and that bit is attached to the deck. The deck being above and the ceiling, the overhead, is what the column is attached to. And so basically this piece gets in the way, so I had to pop it out so that I can slide this in and out of there. So anyway, that's your big piece of brass installed. You can see we got a gap right there in the bottom. I got to push this down. It went together really well. There were no real gotchas other than that one part number that I just showed you beforehand. So that being said, oh, right down here I got to put a ladder in there that goes down at the escalator if you're in the Air Force, but I got to install that. I'll do that separately once this is all painted up and glued in. So now what I'm going to do is just take my big pieces apart, and we're going to paint everything up. In the back here, you see I've done some masking. So this area on the outside is going to be deck blue. Same as the deck blue here, same as deck blue used in the bow, because this is outboard of the hangar deck walls, and this green area is actually the hangar deck. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this deck blue first, because it'll be real easy once it's dry to kind of mask it off and then put a deck gray, we'll talk about that color choice later, in here. And then I'm real close to, I'll glue this deck in, which will glue all these parts into position. I do want to comment though that I used a minimal amount of CA glue, and a lot of emphasis is going to be placed on getting these supports to sit flat and level all the way down. I'll spend a lot of time getting those correct after painting and probably touching things up, because there's a deck that goes on top of it. It slides in these little slots right here and then will come this way, and we want all of that to work out really well. I think that's really it. It looks like a lot. It's just a sea of brass. It really wasn't a lot. There's detail on the girders up underneath there. It's easy and fun to put together. Nothing complicated, nothing worth showing you. The end result's worth looking at, though. And then, let's see here. There's a boat that goes here. And I think Kenneth put his in. In 1943 November, I'm pretty confident that was removed. But I have photographs of life rafts stacked up here in lieu of the boat. I mean, I would have preferred the boat, right, if I had to use it, but they put life rafts there. So I'm going to see about down the road stacking some life rafts there. I may have some extras from Missouri, or I'll see about getting some 3D printed. I've ordered a 3D printer. Someday it's coming. Maybe I'll make my own. Anyway, that's it. It looks cool. I'm going to paint it all up, put it together. We'll come back and look at it, paint it, and we'll call it a wrap because I'm running out of time for this week. All right, we'll see you, folks. Pressing on. Okay, here we go. So it's almost all completely painted up, probably 99% of the way. There's still some little spots here and there that need work, but generally speaking, this is it. This is the back of the ship. And as you can see, it's almost impossible to see anything underneath that shelf in there. And that's probably not going to get any better as we move on. But this is the back end of the ship, all painted up, pretty much ready to go. Looking at the top here of the deck, so this piece here is basically level with our supports up front and lines up just about with the back of the doors there, so I'm sure we got another deck and things coming out to line up. But yeah, that's it. That's all she wrote. I think it looks good. It's been a fun journey getting to this point. And I like this because it's like, what's going on back here? There's just all kinds of little interesting things to look at, right? So anyway, we'll have to touch up the railing. We'll have to touch up some paint, things like that. But it looks good. Get a shot from over the top here. Yeah. And then our reels, same as before. They were painted light earth color, and then I got a brown wash on them, and that took care of everything. So anyway, all right, that's it for now, folks. This is the stern mostly done. We're gonna start moving on with the walls here and maybe the forward part of the deck, and we got to start working out the hangar deck and all of those types of things. But yeah, that's it for now. I hope you're all having a great weekend, whatever time it is that you're watching this, and we'll see you next time.